Hello, my friends. It is Jessica from I Read to Relax. Welcome or welcome back if you're joining me for another video. I'm happy you're here. As it is mid-December, well, almost mid-December, I've already started thinking about 2026, reading goals, reading hopes, things that I would like not to do in 2026. And in the past, I have been very cautious about making a 24 in 2024 or 25 in 2025 list because I felt like this weird pressure that if I made the list, I was gonna have to really, really try to finish the list, and it seemed like an overwhelming prospect. However, going into 2026, I've really been working this year, especially in the second half of the year, on sort of going back into my collection, my physical TBR, and reading not just brand new books, but a lot of the things that have been sitting on my shelves for a very long time. I love books. I love to have a selection of books at home always. I don't want to run out. I feel like if I get anxious. But I also know that I was really excited when I bought a lot of these books, and I just keep transferring the excitement to new books, and I need to go back and recapture and rediscover why I purchased this book in the first place. So I was thinking and thinking and thinking about it and decided that I was going to do a 26 in 2026 list. And the goal is not going to be necessarily reading every single book on the list. It would be great if I did. I'm not gonna lie, that would be great. But I also don't want to put that pressure on myself before the year's even started. What I would like to use the list for is just sort of a guide as I'm choosing books through the year, a sort of snapshot of things in my collection that, hey, these would be great choices at any time during the year. So sort of like a sprinkling of everything and a wealth of choices that are just sitting there ready to go at any given time during 2026. So with that mindset, I went and picked a couple of the ebooks off of my e-library that I really, really wanted to get to and just didn't get to this year. I picked a couple of nonfiction books that I have in my collection because I am terrible at reading nonfiction. So I was like, let's throw a couple of those on this list. And then I went into my, like I said, physical TBR and filled out the rest of the list with that. So I'm going to share what books are on my 26 in 2026 list, and maybe you'll find something new. Maybe we'll have things in common. Maybe I'll be looking to read a series or a book that you've already loved. So feel free to tell me that as well. So let's jump into it. I wanted to start, like I said, with a couple of ebooks. So I obviously don't have the physical copies to show you, but I'll put the covers up here. I read the first two books in I think it's the Starstruck series. I can't quite remember at the moment, but they are by S.E. Anderson, and it is a super fun sci-fi, traveling the universe kind of series. If you like something like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it's like that, but with a teenage girl protagonist. And the first two books were hilarious. And it's a finished 10-book series now, and I really would like to get back into it. I would like to read book 3. So book 3 is Traveler. And as I mentioned, this is a book where a girl discovers that there are aliens and then ends up going on these intergalactic adventures, and funny. I really, really loved the first two books in the series, so I'm excited for that. The next book is actually a spin-off book by A.J. Skelly. A.J. Skelly has written a whole series of shifter books that I really, really loved. And again, I am blanking on the name of the series, so I'll put that down here too. But this book is actually a spin-off where it's not focused on the main pack, but a like pack that they come into contact with. And I have had this in my e-library for a little bit, and I really, really like the other books, so I want to go and read this one and finish that out. Other ebook that I really, really, really want to get to is Heavenly Tyrant by Ziran J. Zhao. I hope I pronounced that right. But this is the sequel to Iron Widow, and it was just such a compelling, amazing first book, and I pre-ordered Heavenly Tyrant, but because I got it as an ebook and not the physical copy, I keep forgetting that I have it. So we're gonna put it on this list, and that way I will have a reminder that it is available for me to read. So I really want to get to this one too. Those are the ebooks. Then I have, like I said, a couple of, just two nonfiction books, because I'm really terrible at committing myself to actually reading them, but they're both ones I really want to get to. The first one is That's a Great Question, I'd Love to Tell You by Elyse Myers. And if you don't know who Elyse Myers is, she is a content creator online. And she's known for telling these little snippets of stories and like giving you glimpses into her day-to-day life. And she's completely vulnerable online, which I love. She's just funny and open and vulnerable and amazing. And she wrote a book, and I would like to read it. So that is on my list. So the other one I've been wanting to read for a couple years now, because I know I should, and I just keep not fully picking it up, is The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. I'm a perfectionist, and I struggle with that off and on. I've gotten better as I've gotten older at accepting that I will not be good at everything, and I don't have to be good at everything, and it's a slow process, but eventually I feel like words of wisdom will assist with that as well. So we're going to try and read The Gifts of Imperfection in 2026. And these are in no specific order, just when I happen to think of them. I would love to read Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, hopefully before the movie comes out. I still have not read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and that's really what the holdup is. I will read it. I know that I need to read it. I trust that Suzanne Collins wrote it for a reason. She puts great thought-provoking messaging into her books. But we're gonna push through that one so that we can get to this one. So technically it's 2 books on the list, but I'm dying to get to this one. So everything I've read by Suzanne Collins has been well worth reading. So tough themes, but excellent. The next book on my 26 in 2026 list is Where the Library Hides by Isabel Ibanez, which is the sequel to What the River Knows. So this concludes the duology. It is historical, set in Egypt, and I really, really loved the first book. It gave the vibes of the movie The Mummy, but with teenage protagonists, and the same banter and action adventure and mystery, and the setting is incredible. I've heard mixed things about the sequel, so I'm going into that sort of with lowered expectations just in case, but I really loved the first one, so I at least want to finish and then decide how I feel about the entire duology as it is. So I definitely want to read that one. The next one is A Far Better Thing by H.G. Perry. So this is the same author that wrote The Scholar and the Last Fairy Door, which I absolutely loved earlier this year. And this one seems to be similar. It is a heartrending fantasy of fairy revenge set during the French Revolution. So I really, really loved sort of the historical fantasy vibes with like dark, you know, not nice fairies. And I liked the author's writing, so I'm really hoping that I will also love this one, because I've also been trying to sort of branch out with the types of books that I read. You know, I mentioned the nonfiction books. I've been listening to people's reviews and making note of books outside of my comfort zone, not my go-to genre all the time. And I thought this one sounded so interesting. It is The Compound by, I think it's Ashlyn Rawl. This one is sort of a literary fiction. It says it's an explosive debut from a major new voice in fiction. And it is essentially about a girl who gets cast on a reality show, and they go out to this compound in the desert, and like any other reality show, they basically are trying to get people to play off of each other. So they start offering them rewards for doing things, taking different actions. And because it's a reality show, they're trying to amp up the drama, etc. So I don't know, everybody's been very careful about not talking about exactly what happens, so I'm happy to be mostly spoiler free, and I find this very intriguing, so I want to try that one. Then I had wanted to read this one earlier this year. It was on my TBR a couple of times and I just didn't get a chance to get to it, but I love this series. So I want desperately to read the final book in the Green Creek series by TJ Klune. It is Brother Song. These are all, the whole series, they're individual, interconnected, male shifter romances. So if that's not your thing, you're not gonna like this series, but they are heart-rendingly beautiful. They are compelling and gut-wrenching, and just, I end up crying through each of these, but in like the best way. So these are just, I've not been able to read them back to back because they're intense emotionally, but every time I pick one up, I've been sold. Like, amazing. So yes, I can't wait to finish that series. And then at some point in time, I'll reread them because they're that good. The next book is, ooh, I got the light just right there. This one is Once the Skies Fade by Vanessa Rasinen. I'm always afraid I said that wrong. This is the sequel to Until the Stars Fall. I believe that's the first title. And I really loved Until the Stars Fall. It was a gorgeous golden retriever romance. It was just sweet and lovely and fun, and I am very excited to read the sequel finally. This one, the main female protagonist controls shadows. So rather than a shadow daddy, we got a shadow mummy. I'm a little excited for that. So I also love this gorgeous edition from the Midnight Whispers company book box. I'm excited for this one, going in a totally different direction. This is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. And again, this is more of a literary fiction, but it is a debut novel, and it is about a woman who works at an aquarium because her 18-year-old son has disappeared. She's alone. She's, just trying to muddle through things. And the octopus in the aquarium is intelligent, and he doesn't actually talk, but you get actually his point of view in this book, which I can't wait for. I think it's going to be so interesting. But he witnessed what happened to her son, and so we have to figure out if he can help her figure out what actually happened. It just sounds so interesting, so I can't wait to pick that one up this coming year as well. This one is Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross, and this is a connected prequel to the Divine Rivals, the Letters of Enchantment duology. So Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. So Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows take place essentially in a fantasy equivalent of World War I. And this book has to do more with the gods that are involved in the future duologies events. So it's not anything to do with the main characters from the duology, and it is, like I said, to do with gods and I think more of the mythology of this world. But we're officially halfway through the 26 in 2026. You guys are so patient listening to me babble. So the next one is another one that I just can't get over the description. It sounds so interesting and amazing. This one is Shark Heart, a love story by Emily Habeck. And it is a story about a world where people can end up randomly morphing into animals. They transform into animals. So the main character is just weeks after having gotten married, finding out that her husband is going to start transforming into a shark. It sounds so interesting conceptually. So I really hope that the execution is as interesting as the premise. Always curious how people came up with that concept. I just think I would love to quiz that author. So this next book is the only book from a repeat author on the list. So I mentioned Brother Song by TJ Klune. I really, really want to finish that series. And then the other book by TJ Klune that I absolutely definitely want to read in 2026 is Somewhere Beyond the Sea. This is the sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea, which I absolutely loved. And I have been, again, almost forgetting that I own this book, and I don't know why, because I was so excited to read it when it got announced. And I think sometimes when I'm almost convinced I'm gonna be obsessed, with a book, like I'll put it off because I don't want it to like take over my entire life. But yes, The House in the Cerulean Sea was a male-male romance with the most amazing found family of these orphan children with special qualities, special powers, who end up getting essentially adopted by this very lonely, stuck in the mud kind of man. And together, it's just the most beautiful story. It really is. And I am very, very excited to see what TJ Klune did with the story to continue it, because it was just so lovely. And I'm both nervous because it was so lovely on its own. I don't want to like taint it, but I also trust that TJ Klune would not write a bad story. Like I said, every one of his books that I've read have been utterly beautiful, so I'm hoping again that this just is another beautiful exploration of that found family from the first book. So yeah. Totally different note. I don't read a lot of straight up contemporary romance. It's not really my thing. So when I find an author or series of contemporary romance that I do really like, I tend to grab those and then I will sort of read them when the mood really hits. And I'm a big romance reader, sort of in like the depths of winter, like that super cold time when you're snuggled up at home, so like February, March, and then when it's really, really hot in like July and early August. Those are the two times my brain says, let's read a romance. So I really, really want to read Raiders of the Lost Heart by Joe Segura. This is actually the first in a series, and I, without realizing, picked up the second book in the series and absolutely loved it, because again, this is sort of that The Mummy, or like one of those, oh God, Romancing the Stone, one of those action adventure romance movies. That's what these books are. They take place like doing explorations in the jungle, and there's hot romance, and it's just great. So I'm very excited to read that when my romance mood hits. Probably either, again, like I said, in February or July. We'll see. Whichever time I've got a book ready to go. After that is a book that I ordered because A, I absolutely love the cover. I'm sorry, I got captivated again. And then B, I really liked the description. But this is All the Devils by Caitlin Wilson. And it is, I believe, a dark academia. Hell is empty and all the devils are at Ravenswood Academy. So yes, I just, like I said, love this cover, and I thought the description sounded right up my alley. So I'm very excited for this one. I have been very much enjoying sort of that dark academia and gothic fantasy vibe in the last half of this year, so I want to continue that into 2026. Absolutely. Yeah. Another book that will probably be slightly seasonal reading is Bless Your Heart by Libby Ryan. I, again, total sucker for this cover and the title. I just think it sounds amazing. But it's also set in 1999 in Southeast Texas. And the owners, the women who own the funeral parlor in town, are keeping up a steady business. As more folks turn up dead in their town, the 4 ladies have to try to take out the vampires that are taking out their townsfolk. I just think it sounds so fun. Oh my God. I think that'll be a great one, like in October or even leading up to that, whenever I feel like I just need a little vampire hunting. After that, I finally want to read The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. I have a love-hate relationship with cozy fantasy. I think it really, really, really depends on who's written it. I think cozy fantasy can be amazing. And then I think sometimes if it's not well written enough, the stakes are just too low for me and I'm essentially bored. So Sarah Beth Durst has written some other books that I've really, really enjoyed. So, and I've heard great things about this one. So I am looking forward to it and hoping that this cozy fantasy is going to be the right kind of cozy fantasy. It just looks so good. Number 20 is The Spirit Bares Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White. So this is one that I have not seen very many people read at all, but I, again, got totally sucked in by this cover. I just find it so weirdly fascinating, and it's got these awesome eyeball sprayed edges. But then I also read the description, and it takes place in London in the 1880s, and it has to do with spiritualism, which I find fascinating. Like, there was a period of time where people were totally fixated on like divination and seances and all of those things, and there was so much confusion about, is it real? Is it not real? What's happening? Is the spirit world there? And I've read several books set like around spiritualism, and they're just so good because it's such a good concept to be able to try and ride that line of, is it actually happening or is somebody conning you? And I am, yes. So I've had this on my shelf for a while. It was one that I saw in the bookstore and passed up and went back 3 or 4 times before I finally bought it for myself, because I just could not stop thinking about the title and the cover, Dirty Lying Fairies by Sabrina Blackberry. And I just had to have it. And then I just haven't read it, so I need to read it. But the tagline says, it's one thing to believe in the Fae, it's quite another to become one. So this is basically about a human who ends up transforming into a fairy and then has to deal with the Fae world. And I am stoked to eventually get myself to read this book. Another one that sat on my bookshelf for way too long is A Promise of Fire by Amanda Boucher. This is the first book in the Kingmaker Chronicles, and I've heard amazing things about this series, and I picked up the first book and let it sit on my shelf for a very long time. So this one is about let me just read you the synopsis. Kat Fiza isn't who she pretends to be. She's perfectly content, disguised as a soothsayer in a traveling circus, avoiding the destiny the gods and her dangerous family have saddled her with. As far as she's concerned, the magic humming within her blood can live and die with her. She won't be anyone's pawn. But then she locks eyes with an ambitious warlord from the magic-deprived South, and her illusion of safety is shattered forever. Griffin knows Kat is the Kingmaker, the woman able to divine truth through lies, and he wants her to be a powerful weapon for his newly conquered realm. Series. I might wait and do this one a little bit later in the year because there's a couple of series that I want to try and finish, but I do want to eventually start this one. It sounds so good. Speaking of more series that I want to start and still need to finish some other ones first. This is book 1 in the Curious Realities series. It's the Wonderland Trials by Sarah Ella. I happen to be a person who is obsessed with Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. I actually prefer Through the Looking Glass, but that's okay. I've been obsessed with Alice since I was a young teenager. It just is a story that fascinated me, and I actually would read Through the Looking Glass. I would go and visit like my grandmother, and she had this beautiful copy of the book, and I would just read it once a year when I was there. So I love retellings or twisted versions of the Alice story. And so anytime I see one that looks interesting, I definitely snatch it up. And this one, Alice Liddell wants to escape her normal life in Oxford and find the parents who abandoned her 10 years ago, but she gets more than she bargained for when her older sister is arrested for having the infamous Wonder Gene, the key to unlocking the Curious Wonderland reality. So then she gets invited to participate in the Wonderland Trials. So, that's one that got buried in my bookshelf, and I honestly forgot that I had it. I don't know how, but I forgot it was in there. So we gotta pull some of these fantastic looking books back out. Speaking of, another one in that exact same scenario, I bought this, I think, 2 years ago for the 12 books recommended by 12 friends challenge, and did not end up completing. Like, this was one of 2 books that I didn't finish that year, and it's killing me now that it's been sitting on my shelf since then. It is Wild and Wicked Things by Francesca May, and it's got a cover on it with the beautiful gold edges, so it is a little shiny. Sorry about that. But this one is set in the 1920s, and it's full of dark magic, romance, and murder. So again, this one just sounds, I love the 1920s era, and then you've got dark magic and murder. It sounds so intriguing. It's called a dark, sensuous exploration of the bonds between complex women. So yes, I'm excited for that one. And then we've just got two more. Thank you so much for your patience. I know this video has been very long. This one is actually a book written by an author friend of mine, and again, it got buried in my bookshelf and I have not gone back to it. But it is Elder God Dance Squad by Carrie Harris. And I think this sounds amazing. When she wrote it, I knew I had to read it, and it's been too long. So I apologize, Carrie, if you're ever watching this video. But this is basically if you took a cheerleading squad and you mixed that with the Eldritch horrors, you have this book. So I'm very excited to finally actually dive into this one because I think that sounds amazing and slightly hilarious. So I'm excited for that. And then the last book on my 26 in 2026 list is book 2 of the Queens of Renthia trilogy by Sarah Beth Durst. Sarah Beth Durst, who wrote The Spell Shop. So this is another author where I have 2 on the list. I just realized that. But the first book in the Queens of Renthia series, The Queen of Blood, was spectacular. And I read it a couple years ago, bought the other 2 books in the trilogy, and never read them because I'm terrible at that. And so I am very, very excited to read book 2, The Reluctant Queen, and then I'll be able to read book 3, hopefully, as well. Just stellar, deep, like more high fantasy, gorgeously written. So yes. And it'll be interesting to see the difference between the two Sarah Beth Durst books once I read them. Spell Shop is cozy fantasy and this is high fantasy, so I'm excited for that. But that, if you are still watching at the end of this video, thank you so much. But that is my 26 in 2026 list. And again, I doubt, knowing myself, that I will read all 26 of these in 2026 because I'm not going to force myself to. But like I said, I'm really, really hoping that I can use this list as sort of a guide through the year. And then, I mean, I'll be mood reading off of that when I'm picking my different TBRs. But it's, like I said, there were books on this list that I pulled out of my shelf that I was like, oh, I really forgot I had this. So I should do this more often and sort of make a pool of, hi baby, make a pool of books that I really want to try and prioritize, or like remember that they're there, because I keep track on Goodreads, but there's something different when you physically see the book in front of you. And there's just so many good books out there, so we really want to read the books that we thought sounded interesting. It's so easy to get swayed by, you know, what's popular at the moment. And I'm not saying don't read to the trends, because I do. But, you know, I also picked out all of these books because I thought they sounded amazing. And now I want to find out for real if they are. So thank you again for joining me. Let me know if any of these books are on your list, or just if you've read them and if you liked them or not. Try to be spoiler free because I haven't read them yet, but I would love, you know, vague opinions. And yeah, I will talk to you guys again soon. Bye!